Hello everyone and welcome back. Today, it's time for Tinder stories again. Also, I am sharing my creative process for today's thumbnail, and this drawing is actually available as a print in my shop. But for now guys, grab your flashlight and follow me into the darkness. I can honestly say the last few days have been the most fucked up, confusing and terrifying of my entire life. Apologies in advance for dropping this all here, but I just need to write this down somewhere to try and make sense of everything that's happened. I've spent the past few days with nobody believing me, staring at me like I'm less than nothing. I hope that someone here can see truth in my story. When my parents arrived and posted my bail, I saw salvation in their eyes. My sanity was at least partly restored. But when I frantically tried to explain to them what had happened, I soon watched that salvation turn to doubt. God, how could this happen? What the fuck did I do to deserve this? Anyway, the story. I set out on Thursday morning to go and meet up with this girl. Wait a second, let me start from the beginning. I need to give you proper context. A couple weeks ago, I matched with a pretty hot girl on Tinder. Her name was Sarah. She was 23, just a couple years younger than me, and she had grown up in this town just like me. I was certain I had seen her around a few times. She was the kind of person you've been in the presence of a few times, but never probably connected with, if you know what I mean. We started chatting and things were going great. We swapped stories about the town, big events that happened growing up, and laughed about how we basically lived the same life but never actually met each other. She was sweet, she made me laugh, and she was very pretty. I was captivated. This went on for about a week. I would find myself increasingly excited to see her replies to my messages. When my phone buzzed, I hoped it was her, and it usually was, which felt great. I didn't want to hang around and let this opportunity pass. I asked her if she wanted to meet up sometime soon. She eagerly accepted and suggested Thursday, which I was all too happy to agree to. We talked over what we wanted to do, but she worked nights, so it was going to have to be a day date. I think my heart almost stopped completely when she suggested just meeting and hanging out at her apartment. I was prepared to play the long game on this one, but I certainly wasn't complaining that it was shaping up to be more of a sprint to the finish. She gave me her address and we laughed about how it was in such a rundown part of town. I playfully hounded her over it, which she laughed off, asking in turn how classy my living arrangements were as a single 20-something working a part-time retail job. She had me there. I don't think I could have brought her here. The place is a dump. Thursday rolled around quickly. I cleaned myself up and left the house. I felt incredible. I had a spring in my step and a condom in my pocket. If only I could have seen then where this day would go. I might have had the sense to stay home. I rounded the corner to her apartment block and stared up in grim fascination. This place looked terrible. A relic of a bygone time that the years had not treated well. I laughed to myself in the relief that she lived on the ground floor. I wasn't going to have to venture into the belly of the beast. I made my way over to the door, apartment 12. I stifled myself, took a deep breath and knocked on the door. No answer. I double-checked the number and knocked again. Nothing. I walked around to the side window, peered through the bars to see if I could see her inside, but I could barely make out anything. The room looked nearly empty. I tried the door once more, but still no answer. I heard a shuffling inside, and the faint sound of a door closing. This must be her. She's coming to let me in now. Nothing. Curiosity got the better of me, and I tried the door, yelling her name as I did. It's unlocked, and I let myself in, but nobody replies to my calls. The place is horrendous. A wrecked open space, punctuated by a couple of pieces of smashed furniture and trash. Something was wrong here. I should have run. Compelled by the curiosity, I continued to venture through the awful place, calling Sarah's name as I went. I checked the first couple of rooms, and found nothing, but my heart sank as I walked into what I assumed was the kitchen area. That's where I saw her. She was laid out on the floor like a rag doll, her bright summer dress standing out in stark contrast against her dark surroundings. My instincts kicked in, and I ran over to her in an attempt to help. I touched her lifeless body in a panic as I tried to work out what the fuck was going on. Her neck was bruised, like she'd been strangled, but she was still warm, color fading from her face with each passing moment. I had no idea what to do. I started frantically yelling for help, but there were no replies. I took a deep breath, collected myself, and pulled on my phone to call 911. The second my hand clenched onto the phone, I felt it vibrate in my hand. New Tinder message from Sarah. I opened it without hesitation. I'm so happy you found me. I felt faint. I felt ill. Before I had time to wrap my head around any of my myriad fucked up things about this situation, I heard a sound that chilled me to the core. Her phone vibrated in her purse. I pulled it out, hoping that it might offer me some answers. There it was, on the screen. New Tinder message from Rob. I'm so happy I found you. I could not suppress the need to vomit any longer. My body gave in, and I collapsed onto the floor. I started to scroll through the Tinder conversation on her phone. It was nearly identical to the one of mine. Nearly. Minor details changed. Roles were reversed in the conversation. On her phone, I had asked her to meet me here. Before I even had time to try and figure out what had happened, the sirens rolled in. Pretty soon, I was coughed up in the back of a cruiser. Since then, I've been protesting my innocence so hard that I've not even had time to process what happened. I've not slept a wink. And with each passing hour, my pleas for understanding began to sound more and more like the rumblings of a madman. I'm being recalled for further questioning tomorrow. I'm certain this is where my life ends. I found the devil on Tinder and I swiped right. Don't roll your eyes at me. It's not like I could have known beforehand. Okay, let me back a little. My name is Emma Collins, and I just began working toward my master's in engineering. All those jokes online about there being no girls here weren't understatements. There are literally classes with 20 people in it, and I am the only one who doesn't have something hanging between their legs. You'd think that would make dating easy, but I was only there to get my degree and get out. I wasn't about to get bogged down in a relationship. I didn't even want to have a fling with anyone in my class, because as soon as word got out that I am looking to hook up, and yeah, I'd like to think people would brag about being with me, I'd have to start beating them off with a stick. But you can't expect a girl to study all day and night and not have a little fun, can you? I tried Tinder just so people would flirt with me and I could brutally reject them and feel good about myself. Harmless fun, right? Last night, I swiped a sweet-looking guy who went to my university, wasn't an engineer, thank God, and shared my undying passion for Rick and Morty. He made me laugh, and when he asked to get a drink, I could not think of any reason not to. The pub was closed, so, worst comes to worst, I would at least get a free drink, and could still be home early. He texted to say he'd be a little late, but he was already there when I arrived. Same dude as the photo. That's a relief. He was even wearing the same clothes. Either he just set up his account today, or he wore the stuff from his photo so I'd recognize him. Either way, it didn't bother me as long as he wasn't some fedora-tipped whale. And damn was he charming. We just clicked on everything. Both big Ramones fans, read Stephen King, watched the same shows, hated the same politicians. It was like this guy was specifically designed just to be perfect for me. I guess I should have taken that as a warning sign. One free drink turned into 4, and I don't know whether he asked me to come home with him or I just jumped in his car and let him figure it out. But we were headed back to his place when I got a weird text. "So sorry I'm late. Where are you?" It was from the guy I met on Tinder. But that was impossible. I was in his car right now. I figured it was just a bad connection, which stopped it from coming through earlier, so I decided to text back so he could read it later and laugh. "You missed your chance. I went home with your twin brother." Well, I thought it was funny anyway, until he texted back again. "Haha, I don't have a twin brother. Are you still at the pub?" I looked between the phone and the driver. The car was dark, but it wasn't dark when I met him in the pub. He was the exact same person from the photos. The guy was pulling into his driveway now. He put his hand on my leg and smiled at me. I should have asked questions right there. I should have just got out of the car and run home. I should have done anything except what I actually did, which was kiss him. We went inside together, and it was dark inside. But when he pushed me up against a wall, I didn't fight it. Not until the handcuffs clicked over my wrists. Okay, so we don't have all the same interests, but it was cool. I could roll with it. I strained against them so I could kiss him again. And that's when he put the gog over my mouth. Now, this was getting too much. I tried to pull away, but he forced me to the ground. There was a trapdoor leading down to a basement, and he let go of me to open it. I was able to roll over and look at him, but it wasn't the same person who had stood next to me a moment ago. His back was hunched. His eyes were hollow, like he had not slept in days, and his mouth was a thin, bloodless line that couldn't have been the same mouth I just kissed. I tried to scream, but the gog muffled most of it. I tried to kick him, but he just took it and shoved me through the trapdoor. I rolled down a ladder and hit the concrete ground hard, like I could feel my bones rattling and blood in my mouth hard. Then the light above me disappeared. Was he just going to leave me here? But he hadn't left me. He was on my side on the floor. He was climbing down the ladder toward me. Just play dead. Don't answer it. I don't know which was more frightening. The fact that I've been kidnapped, or the fact that I wasn't the only one. I was too confused on myself at first to notice, but as the creature descended the ladder toward me, I saw them handled against the wall. One woman was wearing a torn business suit. One college girl my age, her hands sealed tight in constant prayer from a nail which pierced them together. One little boy, this one could not be more than 12, sitting against the wall with his knees pulled up to cover his face. Don't even make a sound. Whatever you do, Don't reply to him, the professional woman said. I nodded my head to show recognition and lay still where I had fallen. It was hard to control my breathing while I heard his feet approach. What would he do if he thought I was dead? It couldn't be worse than what he'd already done to the living girls, right? I can hear your heart singing to me. How does someone even know how to react in this situation? I tried to think of every crime show about psychopaths I had ever seen. What did the victims usually do to escape? But they didn't escape most of the time, didn't they? That's why the psychopaths became famous, because there were so many who didn't escape. I bit my tongue to keep myself from screaming. Look at me when I'm talking to you. The voice continued, but it was deeper now. Was he continuing to change? Was it still a man or something else standing over me now? I could not help myself. He already knew I was alive and I had to look. I pulled myself up to my knees and stared into his face. He still looked like my date, although I wish he hadn't. But something wasn't right. It was like seeing a photograph of someone, only the photo is 50 years old taken on an antique camera. Those eyes were still kind, even though they looked wearier now. Why are you doing this? I asked. The college girl groaned. Their strategy didn't work for them, so why would I just surrender to the torture? If there was a way out, I was going to find it. And if there wasn't, well, at least I'll have tried. But I am not doing this, my date replied. You are the one who came home with me. You did something to those people, I said. I couldn't even look at them. On my life, they did it to themselves, my date said, crossing his heart. He sat down next to me and I backed away to the wall. You're lying. You did it to them, but you're not going to do it to me. I won't let you. Look, I'll prove it, he said. You're free to go anytime you want. This was a trick, right? He wasn't going to let me just walk out of there. Not after everything he's done, everything I've seen. What was the point? Or maybe he really was insane, and I would be passing on my own chance to ever get out. What about them? Can they live? I asked. No, you're the only one, he smiled. Creepy as smile. If I do ever get out of here, first thing I do is giving Tinder a 1-star rating. Why? What's so special about me? We matched up because we're alike. You're going to bring me more people and you're going to leave, and you are going to return with more people to play with. I glanced back at the others against the wall. I would never, but I had to play along. My only chance of helping them was to first get out myself. I nodded. You're right. I'll be your queen, and I want my kingdom to grow. See you soon. Don't come alone. And that was it. He let me climb right up the ladder and walk out the front door, smug bastard, thinking he's got me figured out. Although he'd been right, of course. I would be back and I would be bringing someone with me. This isn't some movie. I'm not a macho action star, and I am not about to run in there guns blazing. Guns? All I've got is a stapler, which can hit someone in the face from 6 feet away. Don't ask how I know that. I did what any sensible human being would do and went to the police. I've never actually stepped inside a police station before in my life. My only experience with the cops is a speeding ticket that the guy in front of me totally deserved, but somehow I got stuck with. Going in now, I felt almost guilty, like I was the one who had done something wrong, but there wasn't time to be self-conscious. Can I help you? the sergeant on late-night duty drawled. She was the kind of cop that made me want to try shoplifting just for fun. If I couldn't outrun that 250-pound bag of marmalade, then I deserved to get caught. There was a little boy and an old lady waiting in line at the desk ahead of me, but I shoved past them. I don't care what they lost or whose neighbor has a dog that won't stop barking. I'm willing to bet it doesn't beat the devil who tortures people. I need your help. I was kidnapped tonight. She looked me up and down, as though she were doing me a favor. It's okay, let her go ahead, the little boy said. I didn't take my eyes off the cop. Please tell me what happened, she replied. It was after a date. I went home with this guy. I know that face. That's the face. You're prettier than me, so you must be a slut. I did, but then he threw me into his basement. I might have broken something. I was flustered. I didn't know what I was supposed to say in the circumstance. It was just now when I noticed the bruises were gone. My shirt was clean. The abrasions on my wrists from the handcuffs had vanished. And how did you escape? Well, he let me go. This isn't right. This isn't how this is supposed to go. So let me get this straight, the cop replied, shifting her tremulous weight like she was apologizing to her chair. You went home with a guy and then you left. What exactly did you do wrong? You don't understand. He had 3 other people down there too. Had been torturing them. Torture! I don't know exactly what forces these guys to get out on their chair, but I'm pretty sure torture should do it. There was a middle-aged woman, a college girl, and this little boy. I finally had her attention. She sat upright and began taking notes. What kind of torture? Brutal stuff. The lady's eyes were out, and there was a nail through the lady's hands. I didn't get a look at the boy. How old was he, compared to the boy behind you in line? I looked back, and my heart skipped a bit in my chest. I hadn't noticed because of my rush, but the boy standing behind me was the same one who was hunched over in the devil's basement. Clean, well-fed, unharmed. But it was the same damn kid. The boy smiled. Ma'am, was the boy you saw about his age? Come with me, the boy said. The 2 of us are going to have a little chat. What else could I do? The police weren't going to take me seriously. Not with 2 of the kidnapped people standing in their station just fine. I don't know what kind of sick game I found myself in, but when the boy walked out the door, I followed. I'm not going to lie, I was getting close to tears at this point. The helpless frustration of knowing something is out there, but being utterly helpless to do anything about it. The only difference is that my devil is real, and he was going to kill those people if I could not stop him. The only question is, why had he let the boy go? Or me, for that matter. The boy was walking quickly. He kept looking over his shoulder at me to make sure I was following. Looking at me with wide, terrified eyes. Now he was running. I chased him out of the station and straight across the street. A pickup screeched to a halt and blared its horn, and I dashed in front too. Screw you too, dude. I wasn't about to let my only explanation get away from me. The little boy ducked under the guardrail on the side of the road and began sprinting down the grassy slope on the other side. He actually looked like he was trying to get away from me now. Shit! He slid down the rest of the hill and darted into a concrete drain pipe. I was finally getting on him, and before he made it out to the other side, all I could see was the terrified little boy and the concrete around us. Let go of me! Let me out! He screamed. What are you talking about? You're the one who told me to follow. No, I didn't. Let me go. Do you promise not to run away? How could I? The door is locked. so let me go." "The door? What door?" I let him go and he collapsed to the ground. He crawled over to the wall and pressed himself there, glaring fierce little daggers at me. "Tell me how you got out," I demanded. I took a step toward him, but stopped when he crawled farther along the wall. He must be traumatized after what he went through tonight. I should not try to push him. "I was just trying to get home. I've never been here before." He buried his head in his arms, sobbing. I knelt down and took another step forward, trying to appear as least threatening as possible. "Leave him alone, you brute," a woman's voice. Someone was here? I jumped backwards and my back rammed into something. A light turned on. Who would put a light in a drain pipe? But it wasn't in the drain pipe. I was back in the basement. The concrete walls, the boy covering in the corner, the woman with the bloody eye standing over him. Even my date from earlier tonight was here, only how his eyes were hollow. It looked like he had been down here for a long, long time. The only one I didn't see was the college girl. Okay, what the hell is going on? My whole body was starting to shake. The way they were all looking at me, it was like they thought I was the devil. But I was a victim too. Why didn't they see it? "Weren't we enough for you?" the woman asked. "Why did you have to bring a little boy?" "The boy was already here. He was here before me," I screamed. I must seem even more like a monster for screaming, but I could not help myself. "Don't let her hurt me," the boy cried. I didn't do this. It was him." I pointed at the man. "I knew you'd be back," he said, winking. This was all still a game to him. The boy wasn't here until you brought him. I just gave you a glimpse of the future. But the other girl my age? There was no time to finish my question. He was on top of me now, pinning me to the ground. He pressed my face into the concrete and put his knee in the center of my back. I screamed as he pulled my arms behind me, then the searing pain in my hands. I could not see what was going on, but it was easy enough to imagine the nails sealing them together. I had already seen what was going to happen. I just didn't know it would be happening to me. I got out 3 more times since then. The first time he let me go, I was free for about an hour. I hitchhiked and drove as far from town as I could get. It wasn't until we stopped that I realized my driver was wearing a mask, that he was the same devil I met on Tinder. We were back at his house and he dragged me back down into his basement. The second time I escaped, while he was sleeping, the door was unlocked, which seemed too easy to be real. I was right. I went to the hospital to get the nail out of my hands. I told them not to put me under, but they insisted on using anesthesia. When I woke up, I was back in the basement. The nail was gone from my hands, but it looked like it was roughly pulled, and I didn't have any bandages, so I'm not sure if I ever really made it outside. This time, I stayed in the house. I went upstairs. I tried calling the police again, but the line didn't go through. Now that the nail is out, I am able to write this, to have some record of what is going on. I don't know if this is real or not, but I want to have something. I can check to see if I even got out of the room at all. I don't know exactly where I am, somewhere in the Houston suburbs. He's going to come for me again soon, and I am going to wake up back in the basement. He says he'll let me out again if I return with more people, but I know I will only end up here with them. Right now, I am strong enough to resist, but sooner or later, I am going to break and do what he says. I don't know how to warn you, but I just want you to know. If you meet someone online and he seems too good to be true, then he probably is. Tinder, the app that allows you to swipe between people based on their appearance. Young people's heaven, right? What started off as some harmless fun escalated into a complete nightmare. I'd like to say at this point that I was never into dating apps. The whole concept was too weird. After watching episodes of MTV's Catfish, it confirmed my belief that talking to and meeting people online was a bad idea. However, after months of my friends using Tinder, I thought, fuck it, and decided to just download it. What could be the harm of it? My ex had cheated me a few months prior, so after countless days of questioning everything possible that I could have done wrong, I decided to get back into the dating game. After a few days of using the app, I started to get into it. 50 matches and 6 proper conversations with people. To me, that was an achievement. Then I saw Hannah was in a league of her own. Her pictures were beyond perfection. Her profile bio talking about her previous experience working in clubs and studying fashion at Northampton College. She was beautiful. I swiped yes, hoping it would match us. It was. I could not believe my luck. I wanted to keep it cool. After what seemed like a day, I said, "Hey." No reply. I started to panic. Fuck, I've messed it up, I thought. I went through all the possible ways I could have fucked up with "hey." An hour passed, my phone vibrated, and Tinder notification from Hannah. "Hey." Success. And so we began talking, discussing our hobbies, interests, previous relationships, the lot. After a few days of talking, I felt like I knew this girl inside out. Her parents had separated and she lived with her dad, taking on 2 jobs to support herself and him. She was a Virgo. I was as well. It was going great. It got to the point where it just felt right to ask, "Any chance we could meet up at some point? Get a drink or go for a coffee?" "Sure." My heart raced. I didn't think she would have said yes. We exchanged numbers and continued texting for a while. 8 p.m. that night. I got off the bus and started walking towards the bar. My heart racing and palms beginning to sweat. What if she thought I was ugly? I kept thinking. I approached the entrance of the bar, arranging to meet her here before we went in. This is where it got weird. She didn't text much that day, only short sentences and long amounts of time between responses. I just assumed she was nervous. My phone vibrated. "Hannah, babe, I just walked past you. You're so much more beautiful in person. I was too nervous to say hi. Please forgive me." I looked up from my phone and scanned the street area surrounding me. Just a few students and more elderly people coming home from the theater. "Where are you? I want to meet you," I texted. No response. I texted again. And still nothing. Maybe I had got catfished? I mean, this girl could not possibly be intimidated by me. She was too attractive to be. My phone blipped. Please forgive me. Now I was getting pretty creeped out. I kept looking around to try and see her. Then, out of the corner of my eye, on the other side of the road and further down the street, a silhouette of someone standing, facing me. It was too dark to make out any features of the person. I just noticed a long black jacket with a hood up. It couldn't have been her. I slowly reached into my pocket and sent her a blank text. My gaze still firmly on this figure. A phone light lit up on its hand. Fuck this, I thought, and started power walking the other way. Who was it? Another text. Am I not pretty? That did it for me. I knew I had been played. All I could think was getting back home and forgetting this ever happened. Hannah. I am a pretty girl, you will see. That made my skin crawl. I refused to respond to it, and I could picture was some strange woman texting me now. The aura of Hannah was instantly gone. The whole way home, I felt like I was being followed. I don't know if it was just my paranoia or if someone actually was. Either way, I had to get home. I lunged through the front door, locking it and checking all the windows and back doors were locked. I needed to get some sleep. It took me a while to drift off, my mind still replaying that figure standing there. 4 a.m. I awoke to the vibration of my phone, the immediate brightness blurring my vision. As my eyes adjusted to the screen, I looked at the notification. Hannah. My heart froze. I opened the message. It took me a second to process what I was looking at. It was a picture message from Hannah. My blood went cold. On my screen was a picture of my bedroom from the door. Attached to the photo was Sleeping Beauty. I was facing away from the now opened bedroom door, knowing full well before I went to sleep I had closed it. The light from the hall had illuminated part of my room. I sat up in my bed almost instantly, head now facing the door. Standing in the doorway, in a dirty ripped knee-length pink dress, was a man. Extremely elderly man, wearing a blonde wig and what I could make out to be pink eyeshadow and red lipstick. His eyes were white and fixated on me. The room was silent and all I could hear was his heavy breathing. I looked in horror at this figure standing not 5 meters away from me. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just sat there on my bed in complete terror. The man took a step forward so he was in better vision. His mouth formed a large, cartoon-like smile. "Don't you think I'm pretty?" he said in a hoarse voice, his mouth still grinning. Words tried forming in my head, but none of them would come out. I couldn't speak. My heart was going into overload. Who are you?" I could hear the fear in my voice. I couldn't think properly, my legs limp. The figure just stood there, eyes penetrating my soul. His smile grew larger, saliva dripping down his smudged lipstick. "I'm Hannah, and I am a pretty girl." I am writing this currently in a random hotel room that I've just checked in. Perhaps the last thing that I would ever write if the worst scenario is to transpire. If anything happens to me, at least someone knows. My story goes like this. I went out on a date a few weeks ago. It was with a girl from Tinder and my experience using a dating app. My buddies Mike and Tom encouraged me to try it, as I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 3 years after finding out that she was cheating on me. Roam the open fields, they said, so I did. I downloaded the app, set up my profile, and began swiping. It was after a few swipes when I got my first match, an attractive blonde with bright blue eyes named Megan. She was the same age as me, and her profile painted quite an outgoing girl. I started messaging her, like just asking about her details, what she was doing on Tinder, her interests, and we seemed to really kick it off. She flirted with me somewhat, and being the guy who just got out of a relationship, I must admit I got pretty excited. So when she suggested that we go out for dinner later that night, I immediately said yes without even thinking. We met in a location that she suggested, a quiet cafe near the suburbs. It was near her house, she said, and since I drove, I thought it would be appropriate for me to visit her instead. She was already sitting at a table outside when I reached. When I first saw her, she looked nothing like her pictures. She still had her blonde hair and blue eyes, but her complexion looked tired, as if she had not enough sleep for days. She looked much more frail as well, and the temperature around her seemed to drop when I approached her. I was starting to feel uneasy, but not wanting to be rude. I told myself to go ahead with the date anyway. Maybe it was just me, not being used to the dating scene after a while. But that was when things started getting weird. She asked me if I was taken aback by her looks, to which I immediately denied, even though it's true. I tried to divert the topic away, but she sarcastically called me a liar and then proceeded to interrogate me of my real reason of using Tinder to meet girls. I told her that I wanted to know more people, to which she promptly retorted by saying I was lying again. And out of the sudden, she slammed the table, hissing at me. "All you guys want is to get into our pants, right? All you want to satisfy it is your lust, and we're just objects to your desires." I don't know if it was my eyes playing tricks on me, but for a moment, I saw her blue eyes turning to a shade of red and being genuinely creeped out by now. I bailed as fast as I could, gave some stupid excuse of a forgotten errand, and practically ran to my car. I tried to delete my Tinder profile immediately while I was driving, but before I could even do that, there was already a message from an unknown number in my inbox. I don't know how she did it. She googled my name online and found my number somewhere, but the message was definitely from her. "Think you can run?" The message taunted me. I switched off my phone instinctively, praying desperately that it would be just a bad prank of my buddies. When I reached home, the first thing that I did was to call Mike using my house phone. To my relief, he picked up. I immediately demanded to know if he and Tom were responsible for what was happening to me tonight. He denied doing anything and said that he was not that free to attempt something like that. "It's not funny, dude," I implored him, to which he insisted that he had no idea what I was talking about. Just then, I wanted to explain my night to him. He asked me to wait. "There's a girl standing at the road waving at me," he interjected, "and she's wearing this weird white dress." Before I could ask him to get away or anything, I heard a loud crash, like the sound of metal hitting something hard, and the line went dead. I tried calling back, but they went to voicemail. Trembling, I dialed Tom's number. He picked up and asked me how the date went. By now, I was panicking and terrified. I asked him the same question, whether they're pranking on me, and begging them to stop, because it was not funny. "Dude, what are you saying? We didn't..." Tom tried to reply, but it was suddenly cut off with a sound of glasses shattering, followed by a loud thud. "What is going on?" I kept frantically repeating to the phone. I could hear a scream in the background, with scuffling noises. I didn't know how long I was on the phone, but when it was finally picked up back, I froze. "Tell another soul about me, and they'll meet the same fate as your friends." It was Megan. I did not know what came over me, but I rushed back my bags and drove off without a clear direction immediately from my home. I kept dropping messages to Mike and Tom's phone. I hesitated about calling the police or friends to check them out because I didn't dare turn on my phone, afraid of what will be waiting for me. Maybe this is all a prank, I don't know. But everything just happened so suddenly that my flight responses just kicked in. I think the best is for me to collect my thoughts first, calm down, and decide on the next course of action. This is not how I envisioned my first date to be. There's a banging on my door now. I hope it's the room service, bringing my dinner up. Hey there, and thank you so much for listening. I would really like to know, what do you think about today's speed drawing video? Should I be making more or no? Take care, and I will see you all in my next video.